Factoring out trinomials when they have a GCF, a greatest common factor. And so today, we're going to look and see, before we start factoring, is there something that can divide into all three terms? So let's look at this first problem. If I look at the three terms, they are all divisible by 5. So I want to factor out a 5. And they all include an x, so I'm going to factor out an x. That leaves behind 10 divided by 5 is going to be 2. If I had 3 x's and I take out 1, I'm left with 2. 5 divided by 5 is a negative, or is a 1, and the minus sign stays. You don't have to write a 1. A 1 is understood in front of a variable. If I have 2 x's and I take out 1, I'm left with just an x. 15 divided by 5 is 3. It's negative. X, I have 1 x and I take out an x. That leaves no x's behind. So now, what's in white is a trinomial that I want to factor. So I want to take the first term and the last term and multiply them together. So I have 2x squared times a negative 3. And that gives me negative 6x squared. I'm looking for two numbers that can multiply to give me 6x squared that will, or negative 6x squared that will give me a, combine to give me a negative x. So if I do 1x and negative 5x, or negative 6x, excuse me, then I will get negative 5x. If I do 2x and negative 3x, and I combine those, 2 minus 3 is negative 1x. And so that's what's going to work. And so I'm going to put those in the diagonal. It goes down. Then I'm going to bring in what I had originally had as my first and my last term. So in this case, that is 2x squared and negative 3. I am going to look at my first row, and 2x squared and negative 3x share an x. In my second row, 2x and a negative 3 share a 1. Now if I look at my first column, and I have 2x squared and a 2x, well, the largest number that can divide into both is 2. And there's an x in both. Second column, negative 3x and 3. The largest number is 3, and the farthest away is at negative. So I have the 5x that I originally brought out, the 2x minus 3, and the x plus 1. That is this original problem completely factored. That whole thing is your answer. Let's do it one more time. Okay, for this one, since my leading number has a negative, that means I'm going to factor out a negative. It'll be a negative 1 if nothing else, but you'll at least factor out a negative 1. I'm looking to see, is there a number that can divide into all three terms? And I can divide a negative 3 into all three terms. Do all three terms have an x? And the answer is no. So that's the most I can take out is at negative 3. And so if I do negative 24 divided by negative 3, I get an 8 x squared. 30x divided by negative 3 is going to be a negative 10x. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 gives me a positive 3. So now I'm going to take these and take my first and my last term and multiply them together. So 8x squared times 3. That gives me 24x squared. So I want to factor these and figure out what numbers I can multiply together to get 24x squared. So if I take 2x and 12x, that would give me a positive 14x. Well, I need to get a negative 10. So that didn't work. Number one, we're not even the right sign. So let's see what happens if I do a negative 2 and a negative 12. Well, that's going to give me a negative 14. Still not there. But at least we have the right sign. So that means both signs need to be negative. Let's try another set. A 3, negative 3x, and a negative 8x. That gives me negative 11x. I'm getting closer. So let's try something else. Negative 4x and negative 6x. When I combine that, I get negative 10. And that was what we're looking for, or negative 10x, excuse me. So that means that down diagonal is going to get negative 4x and negative 6x. And the other diagonal from the original problem is going to get 8x squared and a positive 3. So my first row, get the number that can divide into both of those, is a 2, and there's an x in both, so I write 2x. My second row, the number that can divide into both of those is a 1, and the farthest away is negative. So now the first column. The first column, 8 and 4, the largest number that can divide into both of those is a 4. There's an x in both terms, so a 4x. The farthest away is positive, so it's positive. Second column, 6 and 3. Largest number going to divide in both of those is a 3. And the farthest away is negative, so it's a minus 3. So when I factor this, that negative 3 comes in. I have the 2x minus 1 and the 4x minus 3. All that all together is your answer.